notification dinged, flashing overdue on my phone screen. Another bill, another missed deadline. My apartment felt like a cage, and my dreams, once vibrant, were just dusty memories in a notebook. I grew up thinking success was about one big leap. I'd always had ideas, sketchbooks full of designs, half-written stories on my laptop. But I also had a deep fear of failure, an even deeper fear of putting myself out there and being judged. I worked a job that paid the rent, but slowly drained my spirit. Every evening, I'd scroll social media, watching others build their lives, feeling a familiar ache of envy mixed with self-pity. I told myself I was an artist, a creator, but my actions screamed procrastinator. I was constantly waiting for the right time, the big inspiration, or a sign from the universe. Meanwhile, laundry piled up, dishes sat in the sink, and my projects remained untouched. This pattern wasn't just about my creative work, it seeped into everything. My fitness suffered, my relationships felt neglected because I was always too busy or too tired. The worst part was the internal monologue: "You'll never finish anything, you're not disciplined enough, why even try?" It was a quiet, constant erosion of my self-worth. I remember one specific Tuesday evening, sitting on my couch, surrounded by takeaway containers. I had a huge project due for a client, one that could really elevate my career, but I hadn't even opened the file. It was 11 p.m. Panic clawed at my throat. I stared at the ceiling, feeling this overwhelming sense of being utterly stuck. That night, something shifted. Not a grand epiphany, but a tiny, tired whisper. "Just open the file." I didn't plan to work, just to open it. And I did. Then I typed one sentence. The next morning, instead of hitting snooze, I set an alarm for 30 minutes earlier. All I told myself was, get dressed no matter what. It felt ridiculously small, but I did it. The next day, I put on my shoes and walked around the block for 10 minutes. It wasn't about the walk, it was about the follow-through, the simple act of keeping a promise to myself. Those small steps became my secret weapon. The get-dressed ritual turned into a consistent morning routine. The walk around the block became 30 minutes at the park, then eventually a morning run. For my creative work, I committed to a minimum viable effort: 15 minutes of focused work, no distractions, every single day. Some days 15 minutes felt like an eternity. I'd sit there staring at the screen, words refusing to come. Doubt would creep back in: "This is pointless, you're still not good enough." I remember one particularly tough week where I felt like I was crawling through mud. My client project was stagnating, and personal things felt heavy. I missed 2 days of my morning routine. On the third day, I felt that familiar pull to just give up. But I thought back to the very first tiny step: just opening the file. So I sat down. I opened the file. I didn't write anything brilliant, just edited 2 sentences. It wasn't glorious, but it was something. I started carrying a small notebook everywhere, jotting down ideas in supermarket queues or on the bus. These weren't masterpieces, often they were just fragmented thoughts or observations. The key wasn't the quality, but the consistent act of showing up. There were days of absolute failure, where I'd sleep through alarms, waste hours scrolling, and feel that heavy blanket of shame. But each time I tried to restart, not from scratch, but from the last small win. I learned to forgive myself faster. I learned that consistency wasn't about perfection, it was about persistence after imperfection. I focused on building systems, not relying on motivation. I set up my workspace before bed. I scheduled my 15 minutes like an unbreakable appointment. The real shift happened when I stopped chasing grand leaps and started valuing the power of compound effort. It wasn't one massive moment, but a series of small, accumulating victories. The client project, which once seemed insurmountable, was completed. Then another. My portfolio slowly built up. I started taking on more challenging work, not because I suddenly felt fearless, but because I had evidence of my ability to consistently show up. The biggest breakthrough was internal. The voice of self-doubt didn't disappear, but it lost its power. I wasn't waiting for permission or inspiration anymore. I was creating it. I saw myself not as someone trying to be disciplined, but as someone who was disciplined, one tiny action at a time. The physical changes followed too. I felt stronger, clearer-headed. My apartment, once a symbol of my stagnation, became a space I intentionally curated, a reflection of the small, consistent efforts I was making in every area of my life. The principle here is simple, almost deceptively so: start ridiculously small. Don't wait for motivation, build momentum. Your grandest vision, your biggest dream, it all begins with the micro-action you can take right now. A small step isn't just a step, it's a statement. It tells your mind and your body that you are serious, that you are moving forward, even if it's just by an inch. And an inch today and another tomorrow soon becomes miles. Focus on the consistency of the smallest possible action and let the momentum build itself. I look back at that overwhelmed person on the couch, staring at an overdue bill, and I know exactly how you might feel right now. That knot in your stomach, that heavy feeling of being stuck. But I also know that you have the power to loosen that knot, to shift that weight, not by willing yourself to take a giant leap, but by choosing the smallest possible step. Don't worry about the entire staircase, just find the first riser. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be persistent. Your future self is waiting for the tiny choice you make right now. Today, choose one small step. Decide on one thing you'll achieve before lunch, set a timer for 5 minutes of focused work, or simply clear one item from your workspace.